if everything about my intent and energy is to sell to you, now there are some people that it won't repel, but many people, maybe even most, will be repelled by that energy and intent. So I disqualify people as well. It's hard to do that if your goal is to sell to everybody and you try to sell to everybody. Anyone with a pulse and with money. That's a good question. So I haven't been asked this on a podcast, so this is a good question. Look, I think sales is needed and respectable work when done right. Now, no business can operate without revenue, and we are often the front line of revenue generation.
Muy buenas a todos, ¿cómo están? Bueno, hoy tenemos un nuevo capítulo de podcast. Hoy lo tenemos a Michael Dunleavy. La verdad, estoy muy contento de tenerlo aquí. Michael es un experto, un especialista. Desde mi opinión, es uno de los mejores en el mundo de las ventas y también, bueno, obviamente todo lo que tenga que ver con el crecimiento personal. Así que, bueno, Michael, un placer tenerte aquí. How are you, Michael?
I'm good, and thank you for the introduction. Good to see you, Axel.
A pleasure, Michael. So today I just want to talk with you about sales, about your personal development journey, and well, for all the people that don't know you, how do you present yourself? Who is Michael Dunleavy?
Oh, that's a big question. I guess it depends on who's asking and what the context of why they're asking you. I mean, I'm a dad to 2 kids, so in that context, that's who I am. I'm a husband, I'm a businessman, I'm a sales coach, I sell for other people. I'm an Australian living in Guatemala. So it depends on who's asking and what you want to know about me.
Nice. So, Michael, when do you start your journey as a salesperson?
Yeah, so obviously it depends on how you define sales experience. So I first started working retail when I was at university. So for the 3 years I was at university, I worked in a retail store, which was selling alcohol, selling liquor. So, so I was selling. Most of it was customer service and order taking. I wasn't influencing purchasing decisions that much. There was a little bit. Some people would ask me for advice or suggestions, my opinion, and I would influence a little bit. But I guess I got comfortable with managing transactions, managing money, buying, purchasing decisions. So in a way then, but really proper selling, when I graduated from university, I worked for Jack Daniels for 2 years, and that was a proper sales role. And so I really considered that my start point. But the work I'd done leading up to that certainly helped me a lot. I was comfortable speaking to people. I was comfortable making decisions. I was comfortable presenting. I had product knowledge of alcohol, so it wasn't a super hard transition to move into a formal selling role. But that was more than 20 years ago. I'm in my mid-40s. That was in 2003. So that was a long time ago now, more than 20 years ago.
Wow. And when do you move to the online space or maybe to the remote sales?
Full-time 100% 5 years ago when COVID started, but I was already doing a version of it. So pre-COVID, I had physical businesses in Guatemala. I ended up closing them. They were no longer profitable, sustainable after, no tourism here for nearly 2 years. So, but I had online components of those businesses. I had a Shopify store. I used to sell products and services online via WhatsApp and SMSs and sometimes Skype calls. So I didn't know that was remote selling because I never heard those words before, like remote selling, but it was remote selling. And I also contracted myself to a friend's business from 2017. I only finished with them a year ago, and that was selling high ticket fishing packages, which were very high ticket, 20, 30, 40, 50, 70,000 US dollars. They were again mostly email, SMS, and Skype calls. So I was already in this world. I just didn't know I was in this world because I wasn't thinking about it that way and I wasn't looking at it that way. Then when COVID, my businesses got closed, I guess, And through necessity, I had to go and find a world that was 100% remote and online, and it didn't matter where I was, and I could use my selling skills. And that's when I found the world that we're in now, and that's when I committed 100% to this world. So that was literally 5 years ago. It was March 2020. We're now in April 25.
Cool. Makes sense. And
Yeah.
and that point that you started on remote sales, you
Mhm.
were so good like you are right now, or at that point you start studying the human psychology, for example?
I was good, but nowhere near as good as I am now. And the reason was, it wasn't until through necessity during COVID, the start of COVID, because when COVID came in March 2020, I had a 3-year-old and 1-year-old child. They're now 6 and 8. My wife, we had pretty strong lock-ins in Guatemala for the first 3 or 4 months. The airport was closed. Australia's airport was closed. Basically, I couldn't fly out of Australia. Sorry, I couldn't fly out of Guatemala to Australia or the UK. I have a British passport as well, to go and get a job to get us through that difficult period. So through necessity, I had to stay here and figure it out. And what I realized was, while I was good at sales, I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And in particular, in a few areas like cold calling and outbound prospecting. So I invested in some training in those areas. The training worked really, really well. I liked it. And then during that period, I 100% committed to remote selling. And because I had such a good experience with the learnings, I committed to learning and just getting better as quickly as I could and to the highest level that I could. So really, it was 5 years ago that things got really, really serious for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I ask you who was your first mentor?
First mentor in my whole sales journey.
Yeah, and this part of the journey where you start to
My
commit
my first sales
100%.
men my first sales mentor in general was back when I worked at Jack Daniel's, a guy called Campbell, who was my boss. He hired me, and he was my boss. And he's
Okay.
the one, because you're in my sales training program.
Yeah.
One of the things I teach you all is the Socratic method. And the sentence, I guess, that sums up the Socratic method better than any that I've found is, they have all the answers. Your job is to ask the right questions. So he taught me that on the first morning of my first day. And
Wow.
that was where I learned the power of asking the right questions the right way at the right time, as opposed to holding up a shiny object going, look how amazing this is, don't you want it? In that regard, he was my first mentor. But with cold calling, I had never cold called before. And at the start of COVID, the roles I was applying for, I didn't know I could apply for better roles because I was new to this world. But I went for pretty low roles that had me cold calling, doing like the lowest work out there, which in hindsight was great because I built from the ground up, and I had to be really, really humble and really open and really hungry. But
Yeah.
I had never cold called before. And when I did a few cold calls, I was like, I think there's a better way to do it. And I don't know what it is, but I just feel in my bones there's a better way to do it. So I Googled, cold call trainers. And then I ended up finding a guy called Benjamin Dennehy, he's a New Zealand guy that lives in the UK. And he has a business that's built largely around training cold callers. And I really liked his approach and his training. I ended up doing all of his training. And that helped enormously. That really got me thinking and then acting very differently in the cold calling sense. And then quickly I evolved out of that successfully into better roles. And then, I'm an eternal student. I'm always learning. So the learning never ends. But there's 2 examples.
Okay. Nice. So you will say, Michael, that there is like a difference between, well, everybody is a salesperson, but
Mhm.
there is a difference between being a salesperson who tries to convince the other ones to buy their products, to the
Yep.
way that you teach how to sell people and how to
Yes.
help them to have realization.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I mean, in very simplistic terms, a salesperson focused on convincing. It's almost like the push method. I'm trying to get you to do something, and something that probably benefits me, the salesperson, because if I can convince you to buy, then I get a commission and I, achieve my goal. Whereas I'm more about the realization method. So it's not about me convincing you, it's about you having realizations via the questions I ask you and the journey I take you on. And on the back of that, if it all lines up, and it doesn't always line up, but if you're on a good offer and you're speaking to good prospects and you're handling yourself well, very often it does, the realization I'll have is, hey, this guy Axel that I'm speaking to, I want to buy from him. I want to buy from him because it makes sense. It feels right. I think it'll help. I don't have a better option. I like the guy. I can say yes to terms and conditions. So when you get to the end and say, well, Axel, what do you want to do? There's a high chance the answer will be, well, I'd like to get started, or I'd like to get started with option A. So they ask to buy from you as opposed to selling to you, which is distinctly different. The energy is different. The intent is different. And because the energy and intent is different, you handle yourself different, you respond to them different, and it takes the conversation and interaction to a very different place. I don't want to impose my will on anybody. I don't like telling people what to do. I don't like manipulating people. But I do like having interesting conversations with them where clarity comes, realizations comes, it becomes clear to them what can, should, will do. And very often that is asking for my help. And it feels clean and it feels right. And we both walk away from the interaction feeling good about it, which is important to me.
Wow. It looks like a therapy at some point.
I guess. I mean, you've been in the program for about a month. What are your thoughts? How do you see it?
I believe that it's, well, a beautiful space. I have already told you this. And yeah, it's a way of living sales. It's not a technique. It's something that you live by. And in order to this, I wanted to ask you, Michael, what is the first change that a person needs to do if you want to move to the other way of doing sales?
Yep. I mean, that's a huge question. The first thing I teach them is we're not here to sell to them, which sounds counterintuitive. They're like, I'm a salesperson, he's the prospect. Of course I'm here to sell to him. Now, that's not I don't want to get a sale. They are different. But if everything about my intent and energy is to sell to you, now there are some people that it won't repel, but many people, maybe even most, will be repelled by that energy and intent because it just doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel like that they can trust you. It feels like you'll do anything, say anything in order to get the money out of their pocket. Nobody wants to be on the receiving end of that. And I don't want to be the guy dishing that out either. And in my experience, especially with more sophisticated, higher level prospects that have choice, that have high self-esteem, that have money, that have self-confidence, that are not afraid of calling you out, it doesn't work. They see what you're doing, they know what you're doing, and they're not afraid to tell it to you. It just doesn't. As you know, I sell on one offer still, and the people I sell to on that are very capable people, sometimes billionaires, always serial entrepreneur company founders, like smart, savvy people with options. They're not going to fall for that. They're not going to fall for me being real pushy and manipulative with that. They'll just hang up on me, walk away, or call me out. It's not going to work. Whereas the opposite approach, which is to work with them, to ask them questions, to challenge their answers, done the right way, not in a way that provokes a fight, more in the way that is searching for the truth, they find real value because I can take them to places on the call that they either couldn't get to on their own or it's enhanced as to where they got to on their own. And it feels safe to interact with me. So on the back of that, from their end comes clarity about what they should do and I guess why they should do it. And as I said earlier, often that's to ask to buy from me. So the first thing I teach is we're here for the truth, not to sell to them. Selling is a byproduct. It's an outcome. It's downstream from various things happening. Now, the various things happening is that the prospect opens up to you. So it's an honest, free-flowing conversation. So it's real. and the prospect has the realization that they want to buy from you for these reasons. And from my end, I actually want to sell to you as well. I don't always want to sell to the people that I'm interacting with, or when I say sell to them, have them buy from me, because sometimes A, I don't want to work with them. B, I don't want to work with their decision-making process. C, I don't believe we are right for them. And D, I just don't feel good about it. For whatever reason, it just doesn't feel good to bring this person into the world. So I disqualify people as well. It's hard to do that if your goal is to sell to everybody and you try to sell to you'll anyone with a pulse and with money you'll talk to and try and win. I don't want to live like that. Simple as that.
Yeah, everything I believe starts inside you before.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to identity. Who do you want to be or become if you're not already that person? How do you want people to see you? How do you want people to treat you? How do you want to treat other people? What sort of energy do you want to create? What sort of energy do you want to receive? You know, what do you want your legacy to be? Is the sort of work you're doing something you look in the mirror and feel proud of? If you have children, if they were to sit and watch you conduct a sales call, would you feel proud that this is their dad conducting business and that's what they're seeing? Like, it all goes back to identity. So I'm very clear on who I want to be and how I want to treat people and what sort of energy I want to create and where my boundaries are, what I will do, what I won't do. I'm very clear on all those things. So everything I'm doing is just congruent with that. It's very easy. It's uneasy when there's a lack of congruence, when you're doing things that you don't want to do because it's not who you want to be as a person or how you want to treat people, or you'd be mortified if people saw you doing it. You'd be so embarrassed, so ashamed. I don't care who sees me do a sales call. I will not be ashamed because I just have honest, open conversations. I ask great questions. I challenge their answers in a way that appeals to their self-interest, and we get to a better place. And, you know, I don't see my job to beat them over the head into submission and change their mind if they don't want to do it. I will challenge it in a way that feels appropriate, but I'm not going to use hyper manipulative tricks to, like, you know, tell them you don't really need to speak to your wife. I'm not going to say stuff like that. I don't want to receive that. I don't want to do that to other people.
Absolutely. And Michael, at this point of your journey, do you still, because for me it's weird, but do you still receive, I need to think about it, for example, that type of an objection or no?
Yes, I do. But a lot less than most salespeople.
Yeah.
And there's a way that I handle that early in a call that makes it less likely it comes up later on. And just in general, if you conduct calls a certain way, you can minimize the chance. I mean, I won't go into the specific tactics on this call, but you can minimize the chance of it coming up. So yes, I do. Like, you'll never get rid of that altogether. But let's say an average salesperson gets that 20 times out of 30 calls. I'm just making a number up. I might get it once or twice out of the same amount of calls.
Wow.
Yeah.
And can you give an example of what you do for that thing doesn't happen to you in the call, that the people that doesn't tell you at the end of the call, well, I need to think about it. Just give me 1 week or 2 days or whatever.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I asked them early in the call about where they're at in their journey, because there's so many different parts of a buying journey. You know, if you're selling, I don't know, microphones. I look at you when I see a microphone. You're a podcaster. If you're wanting to get a new microphone because you don't like that one anymore, or it's stopping being reliable, and I've just met you, I don't know where you're at in your journey. Like, I don't know if you need to get a new one tomorrow or today because tomorrow you have a new podcast and you don't trust this one anymore. I don't know if you think that there's at least 3 months until that stops working, so you've got 3 months to do it. You know, I don't know what sort of microphone you're looking for. I don't know what your budget is. I don't know what happens when you find a microphone that you like the look of. Do you buy it right away? Do you want to try it for a while? Like, I don't know. So I ask about all these things right at the start. And, you know, on the back of your answers, I should know what happens, where you're at in your journey. I should know what happens if you see something that you like. And if I don't like the answers here, you know, like, I'm 6 months away from being ready, and even if I like something today, I'm still not going to change my timelines for 6 months. I'll try and move that. And there's ways to do that. and maybe I can move it to like now. But if I can't move it no matter what, like even if I show you all my microphones today and you love all of them and it's 10 out of 10 and a great price, you're still 6 months away from being ready. I won't try and sell to you today. So I never get to think about it because I don't try and sell to you today. Because I asked you 10 different ways if we could move the timelines if you see the best microphone ever for the best price, no matter what. Even if it's like the Ferrari of microphones, but with price half price, I'm 6 months away from being ready.
Yeah.
I don't try to sell to you today. So a lot of the times, a lot of salespeople don't do that early in a call. They try to sell to everybody, and the reality is the person was never going to buy and never could buy today. It doesn't mean in the future they can't. I'm talking today on this call. But because you never ask questions about that and the call a certain way, now you've got to the end of the call and let me think about it is just a polite way of saying goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't get those types of think about it. Most other people do. I don't get those types. And then, you know, I also tell them that if I'm not convinced that they're convinced we're right for them, then I'm going to tell them no. Well,
Okay.
if you've got to the end and said, I want to think about it, and you haven't given me a good explanation, and you don't have to do anything, by the way, but I also don't have to stay interested in trying to sell to you either, then I may disqualify you, which means I turn your think about it into a no from my end. There's a very nice way to do it. I'm just giving you the head, not teaching you how to do it. Inside the program, you learn how to do it.
Yeah.
So that turns the think about it into a no. But I always from a no from me to you. Because you didn't give me a good reason why I wanted to think about it. And you said earlier that if you found what you're looking for, you were good to go. Well, clearly you haven't found what you're looking for. And if that's the case, well, let's take it as a no and part as friends. Now, it doesn't mean you can't now convince me that I should reconsider that, or we can't, or if you call me in a week's time, I don't take your call. But I'm not going to push you. I'm not going to call you every day going, just checking in, just circling back. Have you changed your mind? Have you made a decision yet? I'm not going to do that for a week. That's degrading.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if you handle the conversation right, you don't need to do that.
Wow. Wow. Super powerful. And so at this point, we can say that it's not just about making the right question. It's also about knowing how and when to present the offer at this point.
Far too many people try to sell to people that never are going to buy from them today, no matter what. Never could buy from them today, no matter what. Never would buy from them today, no matter what. And that happens because they think their job is to sell to everybody. They think everybody can buy as long as they see the value. That's not true. I see the value in, I don't know, going for dinner with you in Buenos Aires tonight to the best restaurant in Buenos Aires. But I'm not going to fly 15 hours and spend $3,000 on a ticket for one dinner, respectfully. I see you, but I don't want to do it. Or I do want to do it and I see the value, but I don't have $3,000. And I don't have access to $3,000. So like I'm not sellable today because the desire might be there, but the ability isn't. Or the ability might be there, but the desire isn't. I have $3,000. I can get on a plane for 12 hours. I just don't want to.
Yeah.
So desire, yes. Sorry, desire, no. Ability, yes. It can be the other way. I really want to. I just don't have $3,000 and I have no way of getting it. No, I don't have. No, I don't have a dad I can borrow from. No, I don't have a salary I can draw off. You're financially disqualified. I can't sell to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you realize, because we have two components in a call, I understand. For one side, we have the offer, and for other side, there is the salesperson. How important is the offer and how important is the salesperson? Because if you do excellent your job and the offer is not good, you have to close the deal or not. What are your thoughts about this?
This is an obvious answer, but they're both really important. I mean, the dream scenario is to become 10 out of 10 sales and get on a 10 out of 10 offer. When you do that, you're unstoppable. You'll be making hundreds of thousands of dollars in commission, maybe more, depending on the industry and the offer. That's the dream scenario. Get 10 out of 10 on what you can control, your ability to communicate and influence and ultimately sell on the back of that. and your ability to identify and then secure and then perform on a 10 out of 10 offer. I mean, that's the dream scenario. So, but would a 5 out of 10 offer with a 10 out of 10 salesperson do better than a 10 out of 10 offer with a 5 out of 10 salesperson? There's so many variables. It's so many variables. The answer is I don't know. Both are important. Both are important. Here's the thing: if you're 10 out of 10 at sales, why would you be on a 2 out of 10 offer?
Yeah.
If you're 2 out of 10 in sales, why would you expect a 10 out of 10 offer?
There is no coherence.
There should be rough correlation between the two. Now, when you're starting off and you have no experience and no reputation, you're a 1 out of 10. You're probably going to be on 1 out of 10 offers. You get better and you move. Maybe you turn a 1 out of 10 offer into a 2 out of 10 because your sales skills got better, and then you become a 10 in sales, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to go and get a 4 or a 5 out of 10 offer now, and keep accelerating. And then now you're 5 out of 10, and you're on a 5 out of 10 offer, and now you become 6 out of 10. Now you get the 7 out of 10 offer. Like you're both growing simultaneously. 10 out of 10 offers don't hire 1 out of 10 salespeople. 1 out of 10 offers don't attract 10 out of 10 salespeople. I mean, there's always an exception. I don't want to hear about the 1 in 1,000. I want to hear about the 999.
Yeah.
They're both important. And here's the other thing: if you get really good at selling, you can create your own offer. You can create your own offer, especially in the online space. But it doesn't have to be in the online space. It can be in the real world as well. You can create your own offer, and you don't have to do it all. You can contract out the copywriting work or the marketing work or the funnel building work to somebody else. You can go and hire a coach to do the fulfillment. You're just the overall architect of the offer, and you do the sales and you manage the components, and now you've got your own offer. And now instead of earning 10, 15%, you're holding on to 65%.
Yeah.
It's your offer built in your image.
Yeah, your self-business. It's beautiful.
Yeah, why not? If you're ambitious and entrepreneurial and capable and self-aware, why not? And maybe not today. Maybe you still need to get more experience, more credibility, get some more money in the bank. But why not in 6 months or 2 years? Like worlds exist, and you can create them. And you don't have to do it on your own either. You can partner up with somebody. You may have somebody in marketing that you've become close with, and you trust each other and work well together. You JV it, 50-50 split. You collectively architect the offer. Their job is to generate the leads. Your job is to sell to them, and then fulfillment. Maybe you contract a coach and pay him 15%. And it's a great deal. Why not? These worlds exist.
Yeah. Michael, what in a perfect world, what is necessary to happen? Because we have the call, and we have also what happens before the call. In a perfect world, what is necessary to happen before the call to the person comes prepared?
Well, in a perfect world, and perfect worlds often don't exist, but in a perfectly architected world and it all working well, this is presuming that you're doing inbound selling, meaning that you don't go out and generate the lead. I'll have a different answer if you go and generate the lead. But if you're on an offer working with a team where marketing generates the lead, then firstly, whatever marketing has done is an honest reflection of what's waiting for them. There's not some big disconnect or a big bait and switch. Come on for a free strategy session, but it's a sales call. Call. So the salesperson's got to deal with that transition. We did a dedicated call on this about 3 weeks ago in the group program.
Yeah.
I don't like that. You can make it work, but I don't like that. It already starts us off in a dishonest setting. I don't like that. So firstly, there's honesty and transparency as a start point. Secondly, the marketing reflects who this is for, and by extension, who it's not. So there's a high chance that those that identify and go through the funnel, are the sort of people we're looking for. They won't all be, but a lot of them are. Secondly, you want to have a pre-call questionnaire, because the pre-call questionnaire does two things. It enables us to identify the unsuitables and either qualify them at that stage, or at least start a conversation with them before confirming the meeting to see whether they move into the qualified or unqualified area. Secondly, those that do go through that are suitable, it preconditions them and starts getting their expectations, where they need to be. It sets our frame as well. Expectations as to what the call is going to look like. So these all happen before you get on the call. And then you've either got a 1 or a 2 call close ecosystem with the salesperson. And now it's up to you to bring it home from here. Marketing's done their job. They brought in the right people with the right expectations. The pre-call questionnaire enabled you to catch the unsuitables before the call, and it preconditioned suitables for the call. Now it's up to you, the salesperson, to take that, pretty good start point and build on it. And a certain percentage of those should turn into sales. Won't be 100%, but a certain percentage should become sales when you're doing your role now.
Okay, nice. Another question, Michael, and I ask this because many people who dedicate to teach also sales says that he doesn't believe in this. Do you believe in follow-up, or you believe it's not necessary, or depends on the context in the case? What are your thoughts?
Yes, I believe in it, but I believe a lot of it's avoidable. So a two-part answer. Firstly, I believe a lot of follow-up shouldn't exist. It only exists because the salesperson did a poor job. And because they did a poor job, they either couldn't get the prospect to commit to a position. And that includes a no. And they didn't give a no from their end either. So it gets left in maybe territory. Where in reality, the prospect's already decided they're not going to buy from you, but they either didn't want to be honest to you, they were too polite, they were scared to, they felt that they could, and now you're stuck in follow-up land. You shouldn't be there. You can avoid a lot of that. So a lot of it's avoidable, but there is a certain percentage that it becomes clear, and this should happen early on the call, not late, the vast majority of the time. It becomes clear early on the call that this person can't, won't, or shouldn't buy today for whatever reason, but it doesn't mean they can't, won't, or shouldn't in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. And you understand how and why that's the case. You have absolute clarity on how and why that's the case, and you've tested it, and it feels real, and it feels fair and reasonable as well.
Okay.
And you've decided on the back of that, you collectively have decided on the back of that you don't want to take it as a no either way today, but nothing can happen today. But we agree on next steps. We agree on who's doing what. We agree on when that will happen, and we agree on what the consequences will be if either party breaks that. So when that's in play, follow-up can be appropriate. Hey, listen, Axel, now that it's become clear that you're 3 months away from being ready to make this change because of ABC reasons, and you can't move that, you don't want to move that, like that's set in stone, but you do want to fix this problem, just not now in 3 months, and based on our conversation so far, you think we could be relevant to you, let's agree to this. Let's leave it now. Let's reconnect in 3 months. By then, you'll be ready to go when you find the right help. Maybe it's us, maybe it's not. We'll continue the conversation. We'll get to a point where it's clear either way if our help's right for you. If it is, we'll look to get you started then on that call. And if it's not right for you, we're parting as friends. Are you okay with that as next steps, or have you got a better idea? You'll probably say, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, are you sure you're not being polite? You'll say, yep. Okay, great. Well, let's get our diaries out. Let's commit to meet again in 3 months. We do that. I reconfirm what we'll do on that meeting. And then say, listen, Axel, if anything changes and you want to move timelines forward, let me know. We can do that. Axel, if 3 months come around and I don't hear from you, how should I take it? Should I take it? You changed your mind or timelines? How should I take it? Now I'm testing you.
Yeah.
I could keep going, but that's because it's not complete yet. But that's an example of where I would put you in follow-up.
Yeah, it's not a possibility that you don't arrive or achieve the truth of the person. So that's right. the main goal.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael, I have two questions before we finish.
Sure.
The first one is that, do you have bad months and at this point of your journey in sales? And if you have bad months, what do you do in those moments?
I guess it depends on what you mean by bad months as a start point. What do you mean?
Or maybe I don't know, a lower close rate, for example, or
Yep.
less
Yeah.
sales, or things like that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Performance always goes up and down. The first thing to do is objectively try and understand why it's happening and be ruthless. If it's you, identify yourself as the problem and then get clear on what specifically is the problem. You know, am I trying something different? Am I not enthused or energetic, appropriately? Or I don't know, am I bringing external baggage from my personal life into my calls? Do I need to be better at a certain skill because I keep losing opportunities based on XYZ? So the first thing is to clarify what the hell's going on and understand that you might be the problem. But you're not always the problem. Sometimes market conditions change as well. The political climate or the economic climate or the social climate changes, and as a result, an offer becomes less appealing for whatever reason. Maybe marketing has changed something and the leads are coming in a different state or from a different source, and that's changing things. So the first thing is to identify what the problem is and then understand what the problem is. And once you do that, well, then it's just a case of figuring out, well, okay, so if that's the problem, how do I fix that? What can I do to change that? Do I need more training? Do I need to bring different energy to the calls? Do I need to, I don't know, clear my head better? Do I need to speak to marketing because the new source of the leads is really poor compared to what we had? Like, do we need a new strategy for this new source? Do we need to go back to the old source, or do we need to change the messaging? Like,
Okay.
at least I know what the problem is, and then I can work out how to fix it. That's always the solution. Get clarity on what the hell the problem is, and then on the back and understand it, and then figure out what needs to happen in order for that to change, and then commit to a plan of action and test it. And maybe it works and the problem goes away. Maybe it doesn't, and you've got to rethink it again.
Yeah.
I know that's obvious, but that's how I think about it.
Cool. Love it. And Michael, what is your purpose, your personal purpose with your community, with your mentorship? What do you want to bring to the world?
That's a good question. My personal purpose or the purpose of
Both of them. Both of them.
Yeah, look, that's a good question. So I haven't been asked this on a podcast, so this is a good question. Look, I think sales is needed and respectable work when done right. Now, no business can operate without revenue, and we are often the front line of revenue generation. So we're needed as a start point, but we're not respected a lot of the time because of the way many salespeople conduct themselves. You don't need a qualification to be a salesperson. Anyone can be a salesperson. So there's no filtering process. And as a result, many salespeople, including myself in the past to a degree, conduct themselves in a way that isn't worthy of respect. Misleading, manipulative, pushy, fake, annoying, self-interested in getting the money out of your pocket. All these things don't garner respect. I think you can be a salesperson and be very valuable and do very respectable work. So I'm looking to do my version of that. And I feel like I am doing my version of that. I feel clean about what I do. I like who I see in the mirror. I see my clients, and this is how I know I'm doing my version of this. The product I still sell, I've worked with the client now for nearly 4 years. I sell a very high level mastermind products, 25, 40, 50, $70,000 products. I actually, to very high level entrepreneurs, I then go to the event that I sell and spend a week with them. And if I conducted myself in an undignified, dishonorable way, they wouldn't see me, and I'd feel embarrassed and ashamed if I was around them. they want to see me, and I don't feel those feelings. In fact, we become friends. They recommend me to their friends. They rejoin with me. That tells me that I'm conducting business with high-level people in a way that they want to have me in their life and do business with me again and recommend me to their friends. That only happens if there's a decency and an honor to what I'm doing. So I've created or figured out a way to sell successfully in an honorable, dignified way, and I want to help others do their version of that. That's the reason why I have the group training program, so that I can share with them what I know works and works well. I don't want them to become clones of me. I want them to be themselves, but I can share learnings and insights and certain tactics and mindsets that they can marry up with the best parts of their personality and create their version of it, and make lots of money, feel really good about it, help lots of people, like who they see in the mirror, potentially get financial freedom for themselves and their family, and occupation freedom as well, do it from anywhere in the world. That's a pretty good deal. Like, those things put together is a pretty good deal. I'm living my version of that. I'm helping people live their versions of it, and it's a lot of fun. And I get to meet amazing people. I didn't know you 2 months ago, and now group. Now I'm on your podcast. It's pretty cool. I like it.
I love it. Michael. It was a real pleasure to have you here. Like I told you the other day, TSP is a beautiful place to everybody who wants to become master and who want to master sales. Muchas gracias por participar de este podcast.
Con mucho gusto. Entonces, ha sido un gran placer pasar 45 minutos contigo ahorita. Y la gente que ve en este podcast son latinos más que nada, ¿no?
Exacto, sí.
Perfecto. Entonces, ojalá lo hayan disfrutado y siempre están bienvenidos al programa si les gusta lo que estoy enseñando.
Voy a dejar tu link. I'm going to let you link down to all the people
Thank
that
you.
want to show your community.
Much appreciated. Thank you. We've got 5 or 6 Latinos in the group now, and it's great.
Who are they? I'm one.
Yeah, you are one. We've got Camilo as well.
Camilo, yeah.
Yeah. We've got who else at the moment? We just had a couple guys from Colombia leave after about a year or 2 years in the program. We had some people from Mexico in the past. We've got Juan in Spain.
Beautiful.
Yeah, more coming, no doubt. But I've had, in the 2 years I've had the program, I've had probably 10 come through. People leave after 6 or 12 months. Not everybody stays forever. So people got to a point where they had what they needed from me, and we parted on good terms. But yeah, they're certainly welcome.
Awesome. Thank you again, Michael. A pleasure.
Good to see you, and I'll see you in the training calls very soon.
Absolutely. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Axel. Take care.